Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 152 of the Dynasty Junkies podcast, a proud member of the Dynasty Addicts podcast network, the DEP network, if you will. And we do here, do that. And I'm here tonight with my co-host Andrew Hall at Andrew Hall FF. Andrew, how's it going tonight?
Oh man, it is a steamy Thursday in the Midwest. There is a lot of heat going around, and
It's a
I am excited to.
July in the entire East Coast and Midwest.
It's brutal.
I know Phoenix and the Southwest is having a rough go, so it's just a hot summer finally, and I am excited to talk some football in my air-conditioned house. Let's talk about it that way.
There you go.
Camp's back and everything too, but we got a great guest tonight. Clay Moseley. A lot of people I think probably know him better as Pandemic Clay. Clay, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on. This is going to be fun. I'm a big fan. Like I said, I'm a big Rocky fan. I'm a big Andrew fan. So, and I was actually invited onto this one. I've been spamming myself and trades in 5 to everybody, but Rocky invited me onto this one. I was like, oh, all right.
Yeah, I wanted to get you on Trade Addicts too, but you record on Tuesdays, I think, so we couldn't get that done. Yeah,
one day
we're gonna do both, but yeah, we got a lot to get into tonight. We've been doing our positional series. We're doing NFC wide receivers this week. But first, there has a little bit of news with camps opening and all that stuff. Saquon Barkley is the big one, signing his deal. Going to be playing for the Giants this year. I've been saying it for weeks that everyone's worried about Saquon Barkley and Josh Jacobs. I'm like, these guys are playing. I mean, the guys just, other than Le'Veon Bell, guys don't hold out. They were never holding out. I don't think Josh Jacobs is holding out either. I think he'll sign when he feels like coming into camp, and then he'll play for the Raiders. But Clay, did you think Saquon would ever really hold out, and does this change all that much for you?
They can't. They don't have leverage. For better or worse, they don't have leverage. So I was not worried about it. I was not fearful of my Saquon shares. Let's say that.
Were you buying it all? Did you notice any dip based on the threat that he might not play?
I didn't try to buy, didn't try to sell. I just, I didn't have any league mates make any crappy offers. So it was good that I wasn't fielding a bunch of crap, So, but no, I didn't send or make any offers, make any trades.
What about you, Andrew? Any thoughts on the whole Saquon thing? I don't think there's that much to talk about because, like I said, I always said he was coming in, and I don't know that there was all that much of maybe a little bit for some people. There was a little bit of a value decrease, but I don't think so.
Are you giving a mid 24 first for him? No problem. You're giving a mid 24 first and say what?
I'd gladly have Barkley over the pick.
Yeah. I'm trying to find some lesser running backs.
I'm a big Barkley guy, though. He came back, looked a lot more like Saquon last year. Did fade a little bit, I think, late, but I have no qualms about trading a 24 first for Saquon, and I think he's top 10 running back easily in terms of points per game this year, maybe higher. I'm not sure. I think he was top 5 last year.
And sorry, I don't want to hijack. I'm used to hosting here.
I love it.
Trade for you guys.
I love it.
What about Miles Sanders and a projected mid 24 first or Saquon?
Wait, Miles Sanders
and a 24 first or Saquon. 12 team Superflex PPR start 10.
I probably lean Sanders in the pick on that one just because I think Sanders is going to have a good year this year and the running back position is so chaotic. I don't know if Barkley stays with the Giants. Again, you kind of have to take running backs at 1 to 2 years and then adding that pick, you can kind of backfill as you need. So I think that value feels a little better to me.
Shane Clay's co-host is in the chat.
Nice.
The Sanders side by $1 billion.
That's a dream. Yep. That's a dream trade, honestly, as far as I'm concerned. Rocky, what do you think about that one, buddy?
It's not by $1 billion for me, but I think because of the pick and Sanders is going to get. I don't know how good that offense is going to be, but Sanders is going to get volume. Right. So you have to, especially mid-ish pick. You have to take that over, and the running position is so volatile. I mean, Saquon could, God forbid, have another injury this year, and his value's gone. Like at that point, he's right. If he has like a season-ending type injury, his value's gone at that point. So, you have to take the first and decent production for Miles Sanders for sure. And then the other injury news, the other news we had was just some of the injuries that popped up today. Joe Burrow was carted off at camp. Andrew put the note on here. I didn't even hear that it was only possibly a cramp. Is that something that's actually come out? Or I know it's a calf injury.
Calf strain. They're not going to say anything more than that. And I don't expect them to say it was a cramp either. I mean, I was like putting hopefully, like in all caps, like please. Like that was my optimistic
Especially for you,
face.
yeah.
But at the same time, I mean, like I said before, it's super hot right now. And this is the time of year we see this happen. They're just coming back. They're kind of getting back in the groove of things. And I was actually in a group chat and I said something like, man, just give that guy a high C and some orange slices and call it a day, Joe. Like, just go in there and get some hydration, like get some calcium and you'll be all right. But I mean, he had the sleeve on the leg anyway, so I think it was a known issue. And that makes me feel like a little better in a way to be like, well, this is something he was probably already nursing. And, re-aggravations are never good. But at the same time, it's not like he, popped an Achilles or, blew his knee or any of these massively terrible injuries. And it was non-contact, of course. So I'm looking at it like maybe the best case scenario. Oh, of course. Yeah. But I'm saying like best case scenario, it's a cramp or a calf strain. It's a couple of weeks. I mean, we don't really need Joe to play the preseason. I just want him to practice. I just want him to feel like he can, get mobile, knock the rust off. Because man, last year he struggled doing that into the season. But again, with the heat and everything, I kind of blame it a lot on that. And just cross my fingers, he's okay. That's really where I'm at.
Yeah, right.
I thought it was a little odd that if something was going on there enough for him to have a sleeve on it to begin with, does he really need to be out there in July? Like,
I say yes, because the last 2 years. He hasn't had a true offseason program. He hasn't been able to do it. He had 2 years ago, he had the appendicitis and everything, or no, it was the knee injury and everything. He's just coming back from that. Last year was the appendicitis where he missed a lot of the beginning of preseason. I think he wants to get in there early and get some bonding time with his guys. And they just got a new offensive lineman. Like he's got to still get that rust off, which again, we saw last year didn't work well. Him not doing anything until the first game looked terrible, 4 interceptions in the first half and stuff. Like, we don't need that. So I think he wanted to go into the season like, I'm full, I'm ready, let's go. And I think that's why, maybe for better or for worse, he maybe went in before he was ready. But I still think I'm okay with this. I think I'll take a calf strain, again, sit down for a couple weeks. He doesn't need to play preseason games at all, but I want him to practice and at least get through some of the installation of the offense. And I think that's still going to happen.
And then the other one was just Garrett Wilson, some kind of injury today, ankle. I don't think that's. I don't know if you've heard anything more, Clay. I don't think that seems very serious.
I looked it up before we got on. It doesn't seem like it's serious. I was trying to get an updated report too, and the latest report I saw was like 4 hours ago, saying it doesn't seem like it's that big of a deal. But I'm sure you guys saw in the sleeper chats and some league chats, like, yeah, everybody was like full panic for a hot second there with.
It's that time of year, Bubby. This is what we're doing. We're panic mode.
It's like pure
NFL
panic.
camps are back. Injury threats we're worrying about now. We're just praying everybody gets through okay.
It's that time of year where I'm like, why do I play this stupid sport? It just causes me so much anxiety. Like,
so just figured we'd mention them. But there's nothing too major, it seems, going on with either of these guys. And
just for the record, the only injury that seemed significant was Jalen Ramsey for the Dolphins. That he might miss up until December at this point with his knee injury. And again, we're an offensive fantasy dynasty show. Like, Jalen Ramsey isn't technically part of what we talk about, but that could change a lot of the Dolphins and maybe make
them. So is that a Tua bump?
Kind of. It could make the offense a little more attractive because they're not good on defense, I guess. You could write whatever narrative you want there, but I don't think it's that impactful, to be honest with you, either, unless you're an IDP.
Also, Clay, Shane Lynch should accept this offer.
Oh man. I know they're texting they're texting like crazy. I can see in the side of my side eye here, Shane and Scott getting after it here. I'll check the offer in a second, Shane.
I love it.
Okay, but we'll get right into it then with our main topic of the night, which is talking about these NFC wide receivers. We've been doing our positional series by group. It's NFC wide receivers this week. We're going kind of basing it off the DLF ADP, the most recent DLF ADP, and we'll just kind of go down the list and talk about these guys in some groups. I don't think we really need to talk about Justin Jefferson, do we? Justin Jefferson's awesome. Enough said. Okay. He's wide receiver one, obviously. This next group I wanted to talk about just a little bit because we actually, I think it was pre-show on Trade Addicts this week. We were talking about kind of this group and how much you would give up for them and which guys are worth 2 first plus and things like that. So curious, you guys. The next 4 are all young guys, well, youngish guys. AJ Brown's a little older than the rest of them, but Wide receiver 3, CeeDee Lamb. Wide receiver 4, AJ Brown. Wide receiver 7, Amon-Ra St. Brown. And then wide receiver 8, Chris Olave. So I was arguing that I don't put Olave in that group with the other 3, but I know a lot of people do. What are your thoughts on this group here? Is there a break between the Olave and the rest of them for you, or is it just I'll take the cheapest guy and Olave's good enough?
You're gonna get Shane all hot and bothered in the chat there. He's Mr. Olave.
Okay, that's so is sure. Russ, my co-host in Trade Addicts. Yes.
Really? Yeah. No. So I look at that group right there: CD, AJ Brown, Amon-Ra. I'm a big Amon-Ra fan. I don't know. I'm still willing to overpay for him. Well, to a certain extent, a process overpay, a gentleman's overpay, but
politely overpay.
Yeah, right. I mean, that's fine. When I look at all these wide receivers right here, like the AJ Brown, CD, Amon-Ra, Olave, I'm just looking for a way to do a quote unquote process trade, which is what we always say. So you're trying to get some kind of leverage out of a trade, a tier down that isn't that significant when it comes to the points per game aspect, but there's like this difference in perceived value of a player over another, and hey, if I can get a piece on top, I'll do that. So I see that tier as like I'm down to pivot around if I don't have Chase, Jefferson. Yeah.
We were talking about it, like I said, pre-show the other night. My contention, to me, Olave had a nice season for a rookie, and he's very, he could definitely vault up if he does it again. But he was a wide receiver 2 last year. He wasn't amazing, and I'd rather have one of these proven guys over Chris Olave. That was my argument with the guys on Trade Addicts. J Mike was on with us as well. But Andrew, what are your thoughts on this group?
Well, I mean, I think I'll just start with, I think it's ranked accordingly. I think CeeDee Lamb, AJ Brown, Amon-Ra, and Chris Olave is the ranking I would have for them. I think that the upside maybe of Olave, I could see him being, maybe swapped with Amon-Ra, who you could say is kind of like fool's gold in a sense, and maybe that's not, accurate. But I think Olave has probably got a little bit longer life and shelf life or lifespan, whatever we call it, like in New Orleans, especially with Derek Carr now. So, I mean, I like Olave. I don't love Olave like some other people were talking about. I do love CeeDee Lamb this year. I think that Dak Prescott's going to smash. I think there's a lot to do there. And AJ Brown, of course, is no doubter to me. So, I mean, these are 4 players that I would have no problem at all having any of them as my wide receiver 1 in Dynasty. They're young, they're talented, they produce. That's all I'm looking for. And I generally like take the lowest of the tier. And I do believe Olave belongs in that tier, along with the guy at 9 that we'll get into. But any of these guys, if you're waiting a little bit or grabbing an early tight end premium, I think that's fine. And just kind of waiting on one of these. But again, we're seeing a lot of these guys go in the first 15 picks, even in some cases. So you really don't get a lot of chance to wait because wide receivers hold their value so well. So you really do have to reach a little bit. But again, in Superflex, you might be able to wait to the 3rd to get someone like Olave if you're lucky, at the 303 or something. But that's pushing it in most cases.
So I tiered up, and it was a start 11. So normally, you're not giving up 3 for 1, but I did tier up from Olave to Jefferson the other day. I thought it was a pretty good price. So it's a 12-team Superflex, start 11, PPR with a 1.75 tight end premium. I gave Olave, Jameson Williams, and a 25 first, mine, which I'd like to think is going to be late. I like my team in that league, and got Justin Jefferson. So Olave, a 25 first, and Jameson Williams. Yes, right?
Oh, yes.
Even definitely. In the start 11, in the start 11, I was okay with it because I'm bullish on my team in that league.
Yeah, first,
I kind of see both sides of that.
I could see both sides too.
I think it's a fair trade, but I like Jefferson because I'm with you. I tend to feel like I'm contending, and I usually want the best player and all that. I think that's one of those two. You could put that on Twitter, and somebody would go, "Man, you got to steal." And then somebody would comment, which side's the steal? You know what I mean? Like, it's just, it's that good. So that's what I love about that kind of trade. But yeah, I think that's a good trade. Good tier up.
And I just wanted to mention too, the whole Olave thing. Like I said, I consider him a tier below. And excuse me. I would love, like, if you can get something on top of Devontae Smith for Chris Olave, I would do that in a second. He's wide receiver 12 here, which, it's 4 spots, but that could be a price difference. And I think Devontae Smith is underrated. What do you think, Clay?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I would gladly tear down from Olave to Devontae Smith. With that being said, a first is going to have to be involved. even if I do like a first second swap, one of those moves that like, does that even work in any leagues anymore? I mean, people who listen to it should try, and I guess whatever I'll say. So you give Olave and a second and get Devontae and a first.
I love that.
That I'd be down with that. I'd be down with that. It would have to be 24 though. I want it to be 24.
Yeah. I was going to say the same, like not in
Yeah.
25. That's too far away. And generally speaking, a 25 first, you could say is worth a 24 second, you know, because there's time value lost and whatever. But I'm with you. I'd want a 24 swap, if anything. Because again, sometimes I hate when this happens. Sometimes it ends up being like 111 for 202. And you're like, God damn it. Like that ended up not being worth it at all. Yeah. So yeah, you never know.
And Jason in the chat says his Olave's QB issues would drag him down. I think that's part of it. I also just think we may have seen more of his closer to his ceiling than people think we have. That's my opinion anyway. Like I'm not sure he is going to ever be a perennial wide receiver. I think he's going to be a very good receiver. But if
let me ask you this, Rocky. Let me ask you this. Why are you not a huge Olave fan? Like, what is it like? I mean, he checks a lot of boxes, you know, in terms of future success. So what is it about Olave why you're bearish on him?
It's not that I don't like Olave. I just think he's a little overrated for what we've seen so far. Like I said, I don't put him in the CeeDee Lamb class. I don't put him in the AJ Brown class, and a lot of people do, I think. And then some of this prop might come from also hosting Trade Addicts, where Russ Fisher loves Chris Olave and thinks he's like a god. But I just think, and I've said this before, I think we sort of expected Chris Olave was going to be the best producing rookie wide receiver, and then he was. I think a lot of people thought he was the most pro ready, like the situation he was stepping into and things like that. Like he was ready to go, and like Garrett Wilson did do as well as we were hoping he would, but I think some people thought with Zach Wilson that might not happen. And I just think we were sort of like, okay, we were expecting him maybe to have the best rookie stats. He had close to that best rookie stats. Like Wilson in some ways outproduced him when he had a legit, not even a legit quarterback, a non-Zach Wilson quarterback, basically.
Yeah.
And I just think that he is not as likely to soar from here. Like I was expecting this coming in. He did it. He still wasn't a wide receiver one or anything, and I'm not sure he's going to be. Like I said, I just think he was sort of at his ceiling coming in. He's a senior coming out and all that stuff. So that's basically where I'm at. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And the problem with Olave too is, admittedly, I was bailing out of that first round before taking Olave. You know, like lots of folks drinking the 2023 first Kool-Aid. I found a lot of spots where, 106, 107, 108, I was bouncing and could have had some Olave there. So that's what's a bummer is you have these playoff teams, already good teams, and they got Olave right there. And now it's tough to get him away because not only is he a young receiver, but he's like putting up numbers. He's got value insulation for days is the thing. So happy to tear off of him, but if the market likes him, trade value wise,
that's what it is for me. Given his value, if I have him, I'd rather sell him. Like if he's like a 2 first guy or 2 first plus, that's not. I'm not paying that, and I would if I can get that for him, I would gladly. Like you said, like if you do that first second swap for a Devontae Smith type, I'm doing that all day. The next guy on the list is kind of in a spot by himself to me because he's significantly older than most of the players on this list, which is Cooper Kupp, Andrew, wide receiver 9. Yeah. I think you would say when we were kind of talking about it, the other guys, that you would have him here though at 9. That makes sense to you.
It does make sense to me. And I think with the way that offense is looking, there's not a whole lot of other options there, which can be good and bad, right? You can paint the narrative either way. But I think he's coming back full health. I think he's going to be ready to go. I think he's going to have a chip on his shoulder. I think the Rams are definitely going to have to lean on him. And I just think, age ain't nothing but a number when it comes to Cooper Kupp. If he's catching short passes, he's going to get open in the middle. He could be, 150 targets easy as long as he stays healthy, which is always a question mark. But yeah, I think I'm fine with that because I think in a lot of the leagues that I'm in, receivers, PPR and everything, receivers tend to score pretty well and are pretty consistent and tend to hold their value. So even if for some reason, if my team's not great or I end up going 0-4, I think I could pivot off of Cooper Kupp and still get pretty good value for him, which is really all I'm looking for in a startup or an ADP sense, just like what's the most value. I think Kupp still has more value than Smith, but it's close. Only because Smith is so young and obviously on a better offense. And, but there's some question marks there too, because like there's so many mouths to feed in Philadelphia with a running quarterback. I mean, you could paint that narrative either way too. So I like Cup. I don't love Cup. I'm kind of putting Cup in that Olave tier and kind of with ARSB too. And obviously, just talking NFC, there are a couple of other players I would put in that same range. But yeah, I don't hate Cup. I think he's still a fine asset and can still score you lots of points. So as a contender, that's what I'm looking for anyway.
Yeah, and with Cup, I feel like Clay that he might be a guy, like, not that trade value always equals ADP, but I feel like what you've been talking about, I feel like he'd be a guy you might want to tear down from, but maybe I'm wrong. I was curious your take on Cup.
Yeah, likely, because we play in deeper formats. Like if it's a start 9 or start 10, especially a start 9, like, and I'm contending, I want Cup on my team because he's gonna score a lot of fantasy points. But yeah, the problem with Cooper Cup. So I think I only have one share, and it's a Dynasty Best Ball league. Out of all the leagues that I'm in, I think I have one Cooper Cup in the Dynasty Best Ball. But problem with him is he's a tough trade because you can't tear down from Cooper Cup to, some young stud wide receiver like Olave. You can't get your way down to Olave from Cooper Cup if it's a smart manager. So you're looking in the Hollywood Brown, Deontay kind of range where they can have some value still, some value insulation, and then get a first on top. That's my idea in terms of how it would tear down. You can't go to the young studs. You can't throw enough on top of Cooper Cup to get Justin Jefferson, CD Lamb off of somebody.
Well, it'd have to be like 2 firsts, or it'd have to be a lot.
Yeah, it'd have to be like just a stupid amount. Yeah.
Well, you mentioned tearing down for a young guy. I'm just looking at the list. Like wide receiver 15 is Drake London. Are you interested in that?
Oh yeah, all day.
Yep.
Give me a first and Drake London.
Hell yeah.
It could be a 25 first.
I was actually just going to say that. Like, I'd be happy taking a 25 first and London or Smith and Jigba or Metcalf, some of these other guys on the list that we're going to get into. But again, I don't know if the youth owner the youth manager is going to add more youth in a pick onto an aging receiver when the difference isn't that much. I'd gladly take it and I would send that offer and see what happens. But it's kind of, again, it's almost counterintuitive because I want the younger player and the extra asset. Some players that do Dynasty just don't see it that way. They just see age as a big deal. And that's why I just don't know if you'd be able to move him. Honestly, like Cup is one of those guys I'd be fine having him die on my roster. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
just be like, all right, I'm just going to write him out. Like, I think he's going to be great until he isn't. And then at that point, oh, well, I got as much value as I could at him. And at some point, you got to stop trading and score points, right?
Yeah.
And I agree. And I think like I just said, ADP doesn't always equal trade value. I think there's a lot of people who might not trade Drake London for Cooper Cup straight up, despite the difference in ADP there. So yeah, if you can do that, that's great. But yeah, it could be tough, despite what the ADP says. But he's in our next group. A couple guys we've already talked about, and Devontae Smith, Drake London. They're 12 and 15. DK's at 13, and Jackson Smith and Jigba is at 16. So I guess since we talked about the other two, those two are kind of interesting to talk about on the same team. I feel like DK's stock is definitely has fallen. He's at 13, which is still not that low, but I feel almost you can't really get wide receiver 13 prices for DK Metcalf. And so I want Clay, I want you to start off, like, where are you at on these two Seattle receivers, and how do you think this kind of plays out with Lockett thrown in the mix and Geno as their quarterback and all that stuff going on? Not to mention two second round running backs from the last 2 years on the roster now.
Yeah, I mean, so going against like what I've been taught, a disciple of Shaden Scott, right? In terms of process,
you've listened to those
players.
two a lot, yeah.
Yeah, a ton. I still do have a soft spot for DK Metcalf. I want to at least have some DK Metcalf because look at him, right? It takes one game where he goes 170 yards and 2 touchdowns, and dude is right up there, wide receiver 3 or 4 in Dynasty again. He's just got like the potential for a value spike is there. So the problem with him is, or at least what I've run into, is I won't sell him unless I'm getting a first. But then people don't want to give a first for him. They'll try to package together some BS like Juju in a second or something like that. No, thank you. Stuff like that is what you get. So I'm a buyer, if anything. JSN, I like JSN a lot, though. I like JSN a lot. I think he's just a good football player. I can't speak to. I want him on some fantasy teams. I'm not going to try to speak to like Geno Smith and like I'm not an X's and O's guy by any means. I just look at like Jackson Smith's like trade value, and I think he's going to have some serious insulation. Looks good on tape.
I was just going to ask you that you do think he's going to be insulated, even though no matter how he performs this year, like just it could be not great with two good wide receivers on the same team with them and a guy who had a career year last year that may come back a little bit.
I think he's going to get a pass this year, no matter what happens. But I think he's good enough to where he'll put some stats on there, and people will be very bullish on him next year.
Okay, so anything you want to say on this group before we move on?
Yeah, but I just wanted to mention, I think it's interesting that, and we'll get into it maybe later, but Tyler Lockett is wide receiver 42.
Yeah.
I just, that kind of confuses me a little bit, but it also makes perfect sense, right? He's clearly the older one. He's not quite as productive and all that. But like, I'd rather have Lockett at 42 at that price. You know what I mean? Like, if you're going to tell me, again, I'm not saying this is a trade I would do, but something like Metcalf, a first, and Terry McLaurin, Metcalf for Terry McLaurin, a first, and Lockett, or something like that, like tearing down within that offense and still getting some younger assets. I would love something like that.
Yeah,
I think Metcalf and Smith and Jigba both being in there. I mean, where's Geno? You know what I mean? Like, I don't understand if they're expected to do so well, and we're still ranking Geno as like QB2. I'm a little perplexed at that, but again, also makes sense. So the Seattle offense is just we don't know. I think is really where this ranking shows us.
And for what it's worth, what you're saying, Lockett actually did a points per game, had a point per game over DK Metcalf last year.
He's a stud. Yeah. He's such a good football player. Yeah. I mean, he's going to be perennially undervalued. He's like the Kirk Cousins of wide receivers.
He's like Larry Fitzgerald, one of those guys who just like
Deontay Johnson.
I'll take this guy, and I always start him.
And especially now he's old, he's a great guy to throw a second at and just get some points. Yeah.
You could even do like 2/3 or like a third and a flyer tight end or something in a tight end premium league. You know, some of those like, guys that just are getting a lot of pump right now, Chig for Lockett in a second or something. You know what I mean? Like, you never know what you can pull off.
It's I'm getting Brandon Cooks thing. It's the Brandon Cooks thing. Always worth a second. Always worth a second.
Yeah.
Or like
and
Mike
always
Evans
get you a bunch of points.
Yeah.
There's a whole big group here I'm going to go through next. But first, I was going to signal just the next guy and then put the whole next batch of these guys together. But because I actually had somebody, a friend of mine, asked me today, a big Dynasty player, what are you doing with Deebo Samuel, Clay? That's what he asked me. What are you doing with Deebo Samuel? And I was just like,
he's an atomic cell. He's an atomic cell, like indefinitely, like always. But
are you getting enough to make it worth selling him?
I don't have him anywhere. I've got him in maybe 2 leagues or so. So I've got a couple I'm good not touching players. There happens to be 2 49ers on my list, George Kittle and Deebo Samuel. George Kittle I've got back into a little bit, but they're on my no touch list. Deebo's an atomic cell for me. Always.
Yeah, I called him a hold just because I'm not sure how much you're getting if you're selling.
Yeah.
I just feel like a lot of people feel like you do, that they're worried about him, and then Ayuk's there and Kittle's there and McCaffrey's there. And who knows?
What do you think his value is? Let's talk through his value here.
Like, what would I pay for him, or what am I don't know if I want to. I mean, I think his value is a late first. I don't know that I want to pay a late first. So,
right.
Which side would you take? Juju in a 24 second, or Deebo Samuel?
I would take Deebo there, but I don't have a lot of faith in Juju. To me, that's 2 seconds.
I would take Deebo too, because I feel like points matter, and I think Deebo is going to outscore enough. Seconds even are still flyers. As much as we love draft picks and the allure of the what if, the box could be a boat. Just give me the boat and Deebo Samuel in that regard. And I'm not calling him a boat overall. I'm saying in that deal, that's what you're hoping the second turns into at best case scenarios, wide receiver 20 in Dynasty. I mean, again, I get some of the hate for Deebo, but I'd much rather have his points than the potential points of a second round pick. Like, no, just give me the actual points and see how it rolls. I think, again, that offense is going to be okay this year. I think even if it is Purdy for some unknown reason, or Lance is actually going to play, or who knows, I still think Deebo is going to get his. So, I mean, I'm not going out, and I'm not going to say buy Deebo Samuel yet, but his price is getting close to where it becomes an option. You know what I mean? Like, Now we're getting low enough that I don't mind throwing seconds and see what happens, because you can get those seconds back, or seconds can bust anyway. Like, maybe give me Debo, see what happens.
That question Clay asked, maybe I look down further the list, and there's some older, potentially protective guys in Tyler Lockett or Mike Evans who are at the 39-40 range. You easily doing Debo for Evans in a second or Lockett in a second?
All day.
I would.
Bye, Debo. Bye, Debo.
And I think that maybe is something you could get done. Yeah.
Like, I'm not making that second round pick likely too.
Correct.
That's a fungible asset, as we say on our show. All day. Bye, Debo.
Yeah, and I think that's something you could probably get done. Especially there's a lot of ageist dynasty players out there, so they might just be happy to get a few years back with Debo and throw the second on top. But the big giant group I was talking about, I'm going to go all the way from 21 to 30 and just let you guys talk about anybody you want to talk about in here. 21, wide receiver 21, Christian Watson, which is a little bit of an interesting one to me. 22 is Jordan Addison. 23 is DJ Moore. 25 is Chris Godwin. 28 is Terry McLaurin. 29 is Brandon Ayuk. And wide receiver 30 on DLF's latest ADP is Jahan Dotson. Andrew, just tell me a guy you want to talk about from this group, anybody you're buying or selling for this group. What are you doing with this group?
Well, I think there are two names that stick out, and they're kind of in the earlier section that I wanted to hit on at least at some point, was Jordan Addison and DJ Moore right back to back. I mean, Jordan Addison, I like the talent. Don't get me wrong. He's a rookie, so he's unproven, and we don't know what we're going to get. And the Minnesota offense, he's not going to be the alpha, obviously, with Justin Jefferson across the field. Again, barring injury, which I hate even mentioning. But even then, like, he's now got some off-the-field issues. I don't think they're significant, but it just shows poor judgment. And we kind of saw that with Jameson Williams, where it's like, just it doesn't take much to lose that opportunity. I mean, this is a really fragile industry in a sense. And if you start making some iffy decisions, sometimes coaches seriously take a very hard look at that and go, you know what, we'll hold you back another week, or we'll give you a little less touches. I mean, it's the fallacy of rational coaching in a different direction, right? Where it's like they're being a little too rational or too conservative for my liking. So Addison has still got some question marks. And then DJ Moore in a new team that is most likely going to do better than last year. I would think definitely going to be doing better than last year with Justin Fields and the Bears. I think DJ Moore is a stud. I think, honestly, he's one of those guys at wide receiver 23. I'd rather have him over Debo. I'd rather have him over Addison. So the fact that he's behind these guys is kind of, in my mind, like a quiet, he's not getting a lot of attention, and maybe that's a good thing, and maybe you can get a depressed asset. I'm not saying he's going to finish in the top 12 receivers. I don't think he's going to be that kind of stud, but at this cost and on that team, I think he could produce pretty well. He didn't do great with Baker Mayfield, but you know what I mean? Like, I'm not really shocked at that. And again, Justin Fields will run the ball. There may be a smaller pie and all of that, right? There are fewer pass attempts, but I like DJ Moore a lot this year. And Jordan Addison, I liked coming into the season. And the more I've seen, and I guess the more I've heard, I've been on the fence. So those two are kind of, in my mind, a little bit of an interesting package, kind of like your veteran journeyman receiver and the rookie, the unknown asset entirely. And it's interesting that Jordan's one spot ahead of DJ, for me anyway.
So, yeah, like I said, the one guy that was actually the top guy who was interesting to me was Christian Watson. Because we've been talking a lot about tiering down. I think he's a good tier up guy. Like, I think a lot of people hold Christian Watson in pretty high regard. And that you can maybe add a first to him to get one of these more significant guys. I don't know if you get to the Olave range with that, but you could definitely add something to Christian Watson, and I think get a pretty a more dependable point scoring wide receiver in return, and still maybe a younger guy. So because I very much have doubts about Jordan Love. I mean, I like Christian Watson coming out, but I have some doubts about Christian Watson. A lot of what he did last year was based off of TDs. So he looked good though, and he did a lot of what we saw in college, I think. But I guess, Clay, your thoughts on Christian Watson, and then anybody else you want to talk on this group before we move towards more of the lower end guys.
Yeah, Christian Watson. I'm very curious as to what Jordan Love's going to do this year. I wish I had a crystal ball to see what his season ends up looking like.
I know.
I know, right?
So curious about that guy. I'm with you.
I do like the tier up call though. Obviously, if it's not like a super deep format, but tiering up from Christian Watson, because he does have some truthers. So if I can tack on a first to Christian Watson and get up to, again, I like Amon-Ra St. Brown. I don't like to give up 2-for-1s like that, but kick back like some bench running back or a third in a future year, something like that, just to even it out. But I'm down to get out of Christian Watson. If there's someone who will let me tear up to CD or Amon-Ra St. Brown, like, yeah, I'd be in.
And anyone else before we move on that you want to talk about in this big middle group here from 20 to 30?
What do you guys think about Jahan Dotson?
I was just saying the only other one that stands out is Jahan Dotson, and we got a Washington fan on the show. We got to talk about Jahan Dotson and Terry McLaurin, right? Like, I think that those two are very interesting to me in the sense of, could get for a pair of thirds or some crazy, other dumb deal throw in Dotson. I've seen that happen on a couple trades where it just looked like Dotson was the extra piece and it made total sense. But again, I haven't seen much out of Washington, and obviously there's been a lot of, ownership drama there and everything. But I feel like Dotson's getting a little bit disrespected. I feel like he's going to be a really good wide receiver too. And Clay, as someone who, again, follows the team better than I do, what do you think about these two? That's what I was going to ask you.
Yeah, Dotson just had so many touchdowns and so few receptions.
Yeah.
Like, his efficient, people are like, yeah, he's super efficient. And it's like, I mean, yeah, like, congratulations, you got a lot of target or a lot of touchdowns on few targets. Nice job, you got it in the end zone. No, I like him. I think he's like super talented, great hands, and he's fast as hell. He's a good player. Watch him at Penn State. But Terry McLaurin, also just a great football player. Sam Howell, I'm actually a Sam Howell fan, but I'm not. So you guys think there's still a ton of hate on Dotson, huh? Because I see he's very polarizing. I've actually seen him come back around. Everybody's like, I've seen a lot of hype on Dotson.
He's recently. Like a post-hype sleeper again. Like, he's one of those, like, he got a lot of hype and then he kind of fell away and now he's getting hype again. But I think, again, just looking at this list, he's wide receiver 30, right? I mean, like, that to me still says, like,
he's a guy.
Yeah.
All of these are just names. These are just names. They really are. They really
nailed
are.
it. That's hashtag analysis for you, folks. These are just names.
Exactly. These are just names.
Scott would totally agree with that, by the way. None of these are players. These are just names. Yeah.
Yes.
Speaking of just names, we are going to go from wide receiver 35 to the end of the list that we have here. So, and then we'll just move on from here, but just see if there's anybody else you want to talk about in here. So I'm just going to run them down real quick. 35, Hollywood Brown. 38, Jameson Williams. 39, Mike Evans. 42, Tyler Lockett. Like I said, I kind of like, throwing a second at these old guys. 48, Brandon Cooks, speaking of. 49, Jonathan Mingo. 50, Romeo Dubs. 53, Jaden Reed. 57, Michael Thomas. 59, Rondale Moore. 60, Wan'Dale Robinson. And 61, Darnell Mooney. Anything to say at all about these guys, Clay? And then, Andrew, you can follow them up.
Sure.
I do not. I don't have anything to say about these guys. I took Michael Thomas in the Scott Fish Bowl, but that's going to be it's the first and last time I'll ever take him, probably.
You know what? Michael Thomas could surprise. I mean, honestly, he's
sure,
so low. The cost is so low. Like, the upside is still there. And I mean, even if you get nothing, right? I'm guessing in Scott Fish Bowl you took him in probably the 13th or 15th, like as a bench player. I'm guessing, but. Maybe
I think I took him a little bit earlier than that.
Well, I think I'm probably getting a little bit. Yeah, he's probably in the 10th or something. But still, like, I think he could be 11, a producer on this offense. But receivers after 30 are kind of all names. Like, we were just saying this. Like, honestly, like, and I know Scott Connor is a big fan of this. Like, after 30 or 35, he doesn't care who it is. Like, I don't even want him on my roster. Because the upside is just so hard to get back. I mean, you have to have everything go exactly right. But I mean, again, I think Michael Thomas is one of those names that could surprise us this year just because he's been so disappointing for the last 2 seasons, really, with the injuries and everything else. It's been so just crap, And so if he actually performs at all, it won't take much. He could start the first week at 6 catches and a touchdown, and everybody will start screaming, "He's back, let's go!" And you could trade him for something else. That's all I'm looking for. Well, who on this list has the most chance to grow in value? Sure. And Thomas is up there for me. So. I don't love the guy, but the other one I wanted to mention was Mike Evans, which we kind of hit on before, but he's had 1,000 yards every season. Granted, he's had some different quarterbacks of different varieties, Jameis Winston and Tom Brady and others. Now he's got most likely Baker Mayfield or Kyle Trask, and Chris Godwin's still there, who was ranked ahead of him and earlier in the list. But I think Evans is getting a little bit disrespected too. I just feel like what happened there?
Always and forever. And I'm a Texas fan, but I still love Mike Evans. Yeah, so disrespected. He's such a monster, such a stud.
Yeah. Like, I've been getting him in a few
he's
trades
a workhorse, man.
Yeah.
he plays hurt. He's just out there to ball, but yes, he is cheap, and he will always be cheap. So you know what you're getting with Mike Evans. I haven't seen Mike Evans moved. I mean, now that we're talking about him, I haven't seen him moved in I can't even tell you how long. Have you seen any Mike Evans trades recently?
I feel
in
like
your
I just
leagues,
got a
Andrew?
Mike Evans trade done. I'll try to pull it up here. Hang on a second, because I know it wasn't very long ago. I thought I just added a Mike Evans share, and I was kind of like, yeah, I'll take that. Let's see here. All right, so this is a trade I made in DJ2, which is on our list, so I won't get into it, but I did talk about there is a Mike Evans trade on the sheet. So maybe we'll put it that way. Maybe we'll talk about it. But the only other name on this list, and Rocky, I'll kick it back to you on this one, I guess. Jameson Williams. What are we doing with Jameson Williams? I mean, like, is there still enough upside, enough potential, or is it just kind of
bye, Felicia? Bye, Felicia.
Buy as in goodbye, not buy as in.
That's what I was wondering when you said bye.
Bye.
That's kind of where I am.
Adios.
I don't like, especially considering he now has a 6-game suspension on top of it, but I don't like getting into rookie wide receivers who do nothing year one, even if it's based off injury. It just generally doesn't work out. And even he did get to come back, and they did almost nothing with him, which, you know, you could blame on the injury as well. But I need to see it for him before I even want to acquire him. And I think his value to people who have him is more than wide receiver 38. So I don't really want to pay the price to get Jameson Williams. And like I said, I have very much, I loved him, you know, looking at his college tape, but I don't like buying guys who do nothing year one. It just scares the hell out of me.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I mean, look at the format. Are you going to buy Jameson Williams in a start 9? We have lots of people in this world play these shallow formats.
Yeah.
1 QB start 8, 1 QB start 9. I mean, when is he going to be relevant on a contending team? I mean, you have to just get lucky. Talk about a bad bet.
Yeah.
Talk about a bad bet, making a bet on Jameson Williams in a shallow format. Like, have fun with that. If you're right, good for you. You know.
Well, I think too, though, the other twist to this is there are some contending teams. I know I've got some contending teams myself where I'm trying to accrue and add assets that are really risky and kind of like shoot the moon kind of thing, and just hope I can catch lightning in a bottle because my team is so bad. I'm like,
sure.
I'd much rather have Jameson Williams and Marquise Brown on a rebuild team. You know what I mean? Like, the ceiling is just that much higher. Now, granted, the risk is a lot higher and the floor is a lot lower, right? But on rebuilds, I tend to go for it's just shoot, man, give me every possible upside pick, because where else do I go but up? Like, if it doesn't work out, great. You know, I'm down here.
My only thing is, I feel like people who roster Jameson Williams want a first for him. And I don't want to.
Almost everybody that I've seen that rosters Jameson Williams is already bought into Jameson Williams and is not really willing to sell for less than they paid, or they bought in because they want to buy the risk and they're not willing to sell until that risk pays off. And so it's kind of like that's what's always weird about the offseason, or as Russ says it, the non-point scoring season, where it's like there's no points being added to my team. It's like it's all just speculation and upside for literally 8 months of the year. And I think that there's some point where an asset just can't change in value. And that's kind of what we're seeing with Jameson in my book. Like, I mean, even with the suspension, it's like, okay, great. So he's suspended 6 games. As a contender, I don't want that guy on my roster. I need the points. As a rebuild, I'm fine to take him, but I'm not going to pay wide receiver 38 prices. You know what I mean? Like, it's just this disconnect in buy-sell market. It's just how it goes. So, I don't know. We'll see.
Yep.
Okay, so that finishes up our little wide receiver roundup this week. And before we move on to Find Me a Trade, we do like to do the Listener League updates. If we have any trades go down, maybe analyze some trades. Having a Trades in 5 a guy here on here, that's a good time to do that, I think. Yeah. And we are, like I said, we're gonna start with my trade, because I have one trade on here from Dynasty Junkies too. Where the team I co-managed with Scott Sudlow, our co-host, is on a little hiatus here. I moved Kirk Cousins and Cooper Kupp, and this team is hot trash, by the way, for Justin Fields, and that's why I did it. It's a 14 team. If you don't, since you probably don't know, Clay, the Junkies 2 league is a 14 team superflex. So
how many starters? Any premium?
Is it 11 or 12, Andrew? I can't remember now.
I think it's 11.
11. Sure. Yeah, I think it's start 11. I think we did 2.0 premium for tight ends, but there's not one involved here. So, but Cooper Kupp, Kirk Cousins for Justin Fields.
It's 11. Yep.
I was pretty happy with it. People joking because I don't usually pay up for quarterbacks, But when I'm rebuilding, I don't mind doing that because I think Justin Fields will hold his value for a while here, and I can always sell him later. So what do you think of that one?
Is it 4-point or 6-point per passing touchdown?
I believe it's 6.
Okay, I mean, I'm good. I'm good with it. Good with getting Fields. If you like him and want to go get your guy, that's pretty cheap Justin Fields. So
that was my thought, that it wasn't too bad of a price for Justin Fields. And
it's so hard to get a God bless his heart, Kirk Cousins. Former
I love me some Kirk Cousins, but not
you
amazing. He's amazing, but he's like impossible to trade if you have him. So if you I can dig it. I can dig it, especially if it's a 4-point per passing touchdown. I'm good with that. But yeah, fine with it.
You're in obviously Junkies too, Andrew. Not, and this isn't the one I co-managed with you. So what did you think when you saw this one come through?
My first thought was that I was reading it wrong. I thought you were getting Cousins and Cup. I'm like, that's gotta be a Rocky Cousins trade. And so I just saw the email and I archived it or whatever in Gmail. And then I was like, well, wait a minute. I think they were on the left. Hold on. So I had to go back in the league and look. I'm like, I'll be doggone. I do think this is a good trade for Fields, especially if you're trying to rebuild or consolidate assets. I think Cousins is a very good QB2. I think he's a reliable kind of high floor, low ceiling kind of guy, even with Justin Jefferson. And I love Kupp. We talked about that, but Fields is just going to be a monster. And I think he's going to rush for a bunch of touchdowns and a bunch of yards. And I just think he's going to be a difference maker. So again, the way that your team is set up in that league, it's a 14-teamer too, right? Isn't DJ
14 team?
So in 14-teamer, having that stud QB, I think really helps a lot. Now, granted, it's 14 teams and 11 starters. So there are a lot of starters needed. So I think that's possibly the other reason why Renegade Punts was like, I'm just going to change and kind of tear down from Fields, but adding a starting receiver is obviously a big move too. So I get both sides of this trade, but I would probably rather have the Fields myself. So yeah, I like this trade. Again, at first I was like, wow, that's a lot to give up for Cousins and Cup. And then I was like, oh wait, no, that's Rocky getting Fields. Oh, okay. I like it.
And a little context too, we had tried to move Cup for a while and wasn't really having much luck. So I was happy to be able to package them and yeah, like I said, in a rebuild in a 14-team Superflex, get Justin Fields back. So,
do you know what other quarterbacks that owner had? So Fields and then what else?
I'll look. I'll pull it up.
I was just gonna say I could probably pull it up pretty quick.
I mean, probably another 2 good quarterbacks, unless. Yeah, I don't know. If somebody's super confident about. Yeah, Kirk Cousins is gonna be my QB2.
Well, there were a couple of trades that were made, and I don't think there were any other quarterbacks. No, so there were no other quarterbacks traded.
He now has Kirk Cousins, Geno Smith, and Sam Howell.
Ugh, gross, gross.
And Marcus Mariota. Does that help? And his receivers are Cooper Kupp, Calvin Ridley. Well, we'll get into some of these other trades, but DeAndre Hopkins, like he's got some pretty good receivers now. Christian Watson, like this in my mind, this is Matthew Wiggins' team. Matthew, if you're listening, good job, well done. I think this team has actually got some potential, but maybe a couple of trades away still. But he made 3 trades this week, so I don't know if you want to get into the other 2.
And I believe Matthew took over this team this off season, correct?
I think he did too, right? Yeah. So this kind of explains some of the reasoning here.
And this one's interesting, though, because it's the same team, but he's giving up the older side and getting the younger side in this one. So he gave up, after doing that trade where he got Cousins and Cup, he gave up Mike Evans, McLaurin, Albert Okwuegbunam. Did I say that right?
We'll give it to you. That's close enough.
Sounded smooth, whatever. Yeah.
For Darnell Mooney, Christian Watson, and a 24th third. So this was Andrew's trade, so I'm going to let you start again, Clay. What do you think of that one?
No, it's gross. It feels gross. It feels really
all around.
Darnell Mooney, 24th third, like get rid of those. And then get rid of Alberto. So it's Christian Watson or Mike Evans and Terry McLaurin. So, okay. I'd have to see both teams, but it's just, I don't know. That doesn't do anything for me. I mean, and this is damn MFL. So did the team who got Mike Evans and Terry, obviously a contender, correct?
Hopefully. Yeah. That's my plan.
Right?
I'm trying to be. Yeah. My quarterbacks in that league, I've got.
Oh, that's you. This is you.
I'm the one that got Evans. Yeah, so I've got CJ Stroud, Russell Wilson, Baker Mayfield. Not the greatest quarterbacks. Not gonna lie. Not happy about that. Austin Eckler, Bijan Robinson. Hopefully Dalvin Cook plays. Like my running backs are pretty good, I think. Receivers, this is where I thought my weakest spot was, which is why I made this trade. But I have DK Metcalf, Michael Pittman, Debo Samuel, and now I have Terry McLaurin and Mike Evans, which again, I have Odell Beckham. Like it really drops off a cliff after that. I'm like, I need some more starters with my running backs not being great. So I looked at it almost exactly like you said, where it's like Christian Watson for those two. And I'm like, I think production-wise this year, I probably get more points out of those two receivers than just Christian Watson. And I'm like, it's a 14-teamer, and I'll take
start
a flyer.
11. Start 11.
Start 11.
Yeah.
14 teams start 11. You're
I needed
starters.
some depth. That was my logic. I'm like, this is a team where I'm rostering Bryan Edwards, by the way. That's how brutal this league is. So that should tell you something. I'm rostering Danny Gray, Kendrick Bourne, Parker Washington, like just Denzel Mims. Like give me anybody that could
sexy
fly.
Names. Sexy
terrible.
Names.
And then Evan Ingram is my main tight end. So it's like, it's not terrific, but I think it could get lucky and get hot at the right time. And I just felt like more starters might help. We'll see what happens
in that format. Yeah. No, good trade. Good trade. Makes sense.
Okay.
Wait, do you want to do the third trade just to kind of wrap him up?
I was just gonna say I want to just do these 3 DJ2 trades and then we may move on to find me a trade. So
love it. We'll talk about the other ones next week.
Yeah, you can save them for next week because 5 trades is way more than we normally have across all 3 leagues in a given week. But maybe that's the season coming. And
Matt Wiggins was on a tear. We got to give him a shot. Yeah. I like that.
So we're going to go through all his, and then we'll save the rest for next week. So the other trade was same guy traded Gerald Everett and Zay Flowers for Trey McBride and Calvin Ridley. So that's kind of a little bit of a weird one to me there.
This is not our trade.
Yes.
Neither
of us was involved in this one.
I don't want to be mean, but why are you going to trade away Zay Flowers for that?
I think he's really high on Calvin Ridley.
That's what I figured, yeah.
If he's really high on Calvin Ridley, then I'm not going to fault anybody or talk. Hey,
maybe he asked.
I'm not a
Russ
freaking
first.
expert, right? I mean, I just I wouldn't trade Zay Flowers for that. That's just one of those trades you look at and it's like, why do you do it? Kind of thing. Trey McBride, Gerald Everett, cancel each other out. That's Zay Flowers or Calvin Ridley. Give me Zay Flowers all day, every day over Calvin Ridley.
Agree.
I
don't want to trash talk either team here. I saw this and was like, well, that to me is a Zay Flowers trade. However, there are people out there that are very high on Calvin Ridley, and they think that he's going to be a top 20 receiver, and Zay Flowers isn't, and all this yada yada. I mean, I get why this trade happened, and I do think McBride is worth more than Everett. I like McBride a lot, so like there is maybe some value twist in there, right? But yeah, my first thought when I saw this was like, ooh, okay, so that's not what I would do, but I see why others would. That's kind of where I'll leave it.
Sure.
Yeah, and I'm just curious. I know, especially on you guys on Trades in 5, much more process oriented than player takes. But I am curious what your thoughts are on Zay Flowers. Like, is this just like you think he's also insulated type of thing, or you specifically like Zay Flowers? You just don't like Calvin, a 28-year-old receiver who hasn't played in 2 years.
Yeah, that's a lot of it. Yeah, it's mostly that I just don't know if I trust the number 0. You know what I mean? Like, I know that's another Russ thing, but yeah.
I'm just okay being wrong on Calvin Ridley. The teams that I have him on, fine. And I think where I had Calvin Ridley or where I had T-Law, I was fine going out and getting Calvin Ridley or like Calvin Ridley being part of a package, I guess. Like I definitely was not like seeking him out, let's say. But I'm fine being wrong on Calvin Ridley, and Zay Flowers just very recently taken in the first round, right? And got good draft capital. And I'm again not an X's and O's guy. I'm not gonna like be able to talk to you about targets, routes per route run, or yards per route run, stuff like that. But if you watch him just interviewed and just watch him training camp and stuff, he seems like just such a good character, dude. He just wants to go out there and play football. Seems like a fun guy, tough dude. I don't know. I like me some Zay Flowers. I just would not be sending Zay Flowers for Calvin Ridley, but
I wouldn't.
That's
either.
just me.
I mean,
that's just me.
Again, it's just me. I'm not hating on either side here.
Well, you said the guy or gal was a Calvin Ridley fan, right? Like a truther.
Well,
so,
I'm assuming. I mean, honestly, at this point, if I'm assuming Matthew Wiggins, who is giving up Zay Flowers, must value Calvin Ridley more. And again, I'm not sure that I do, but I don't mind when someone does. I guess is what I'm saying. Like everybody's got different valuations. I don't mind that at all.
Okay, so that'll finish up our listener league updates for this week. Like we said, we'll hold a couple back for next week, and we'll move on to our favorite segment of the show. If I can find the damn drop.
Find me a trade.
Nice.
There we go. Brian High there for you. So this week's submitted by Jerry O'Shea, friend of the show at Jerry Shea FF. I'm going to go through the settings. Do you have the roster up?
I do have the roster. Yeah, I'll pull it up right now.
I'll go through the settings and then you can run down this roster real quick. It's a 14-team Superflex League, PPR 1.5 tight end premium. Start 10. QB, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, tight end, 3 flex, and the Superflex. And Jerry says he finished pretty bad last year, got the 104. Started tearing the team down over the last few weeks and he definitely tore it down, by the way.
Yeah.
Looking to make more moves to earn an early pick next year. There isn't much that can be done, but maybe get a starting quarterback, trade away Brandon Cooks, who you'll see is on this roster. And he says he'll leave it up to us, though, probably looking ahead to 2025. So, Andrew, you can run down this roster, and then we'll get into our 3 trades here. You're muted, Andrew.
Classic. Anyway,
I've
so
done
this
it
is
plenty times.
I know it's my turn. This is a super flex league. We've got where to begin on this one? Trey Lance, Jameis Winston, Andy Dalton, Jacoby Brissett, Aiden O'Connell. It's bleak, man. It's bleak, Jerry. I gotta be honest. That is not great.
Ooh la la.
Get ready for more bleak. We got
He's
running
clearly
back.
trying to earn the 101.
This is one of those like big rebuild teams. You know what I mean? Like just
This is a snap orphan, if you ask me. I mean, I look at this team. No, go ahead.
He's got some picks too, which is he's setting himself up okay in 24, but he's gonna need a little help. But anyway, running back, he's got Raheem Blackshear, Mike Boone, Chris Evans, Kevin Harris, Evan Hall, Roshan Johnson could be something, Kendry Miller could be something, Keyshawn Vaughn maybe if you're lucky. And again, I'm not even going to read the other ones. Receiver, he's got Rashad Bateman, Brandon Cooks, the aforementioned Brandon Cooks, Marvin Mims, Equanimous St. Brown. Maybe that St. Brown does something. Derek A. Young. I mean, honestly, Kyle Phillips. Like these are just woof. And then tight end, you got Durham Smythe and Josh Wiley. He likes the Y names and tight ends apparently. Just again, not much there. Not a lot of love, if I'm being honest. So,
what are the picks? What picks?
He does have
he has 4 24
first.
firsts.
Yeah, I know that.
Including his own, which I did check. So he's got some good rebuild potential, in my opinion, but you're still gonna have to figure this out. You know what I mean? Like you're still gonna have to do some get lucky. Like I was saying before, and the kind of rebuild. I actually like these teams because there's no risk in a way. Like it's so bad, it can only get better from here. And it's like it is sometimes the most fun to just kind of blow it up. And just say, all right, let me go back to the bones and see what happens. So I kind of dig it. But
I was looking while you were talking.
First? Does he have good first? Like where?
Well, again, he's got his own,
which is going to probably be the
that's
101.
good. What about the other ones? Does he have any other like attractive ones? Any others in the top 4 potentially?
I didn't look that deep.
Yeah, I didn't.
It's
really
hard to tell.
Yeah.
It's also we're a little bit early to even really get into that. I just know his team is the worst, and he's got that pick. So
he also has.
You could see it's the worst. For
he also has 4 seconds as well.
Right.
Okay.
And I think an extra. Okay, no, just an extra 3. I thought he might have had an extra 25 first, but he doesn't. Okay, but yeah, he's got 4 firsts and 4 seconds next year. So Andrew, I'll let you start off here with your trade.
Well, so did you read his thoughts? I don't know if I was trying to pull it up. I wasn't sure.
Yeah, Rocky Rabbit.
Yeah, I said that.
Okay,
Yeah,
just making sure. All right, because I just want to make sure because that clarifies some of the things I'm going to get into. My computer kind of froze every time I tried to pull it up. All right, so my trade was with King of the North, and it was going to be trying to send Trey Lance, which I thought was really the best asset on the team in a way, sending Trey Lance for a 24 first and Charlie Jones and whatever small little like upside piece you can get. And the logic being, I'm not sure Lance is worth a 24 first in a 14 teamer. I think he is. And again, King of the North has Brock Purdy, so it kind of locks that QB room up for him, which I think would be nice. King of the North could use that quarterback, whether it's Lance or Purdy. So I think that could be worth some value. They look to be more of a contender, so it's most likely a later first, or at least that manager might think it's a later first. And then I think Charlie Jones is the heir apparent to Tyler Boyd in Cincinnati. Obviously, I'm a Cincinnati fan. I'm not hiding that. And I think Tyler Boyd is not going to get re-signed. And I think there's a very high likelihood that Charlie Jones sees the field this year more than we're expecting, especially on punts. I still think it's between him and Chris Evans on punts, and Jerry already has Chris Evans, so might as well go for the other guy with big upside. So yeah, that was kind of my thinking. And then pick any other, tiny piece on his roster to add to yours, and then drop some of these scrubs like JaMychal Hasty, Demetric Felton. Like, you've got so much just roster burn at the bottom. So just go pick somebody else that you think might have upside in a year. That's kind of where my head was at. And that way too, even if you don't get that piece and it's just the first, I'm fine with that. But I would want to add as many little flyers as I could. So that was where my thought was going from there. What do you think of that one, Rocky?
Yeah, I don't hate that. I have such a hard time because I tend to think Lance is going to be the starter this year, even though a lot of people think it's going to be Purdy, or at least he's going to start more games than Purdy. I have such a hard time valuing Lance, so I'm not sure if I want to move him for a late 24 first or not in a 14-teamer. I think it's a an okay move to make. I just think I might want a little bit more on top than a Charlie Jones and a small piece. If you can get that, I don't know. What do you think, Clay? Like I said, I'm a little biased towards Lance because I think I'm higher than most people. I think most people are ready to just shove him aside, pretty much. So, what do you think of that deal, though?
It's so if I could get a 24 first for Trey Lance and something on top, fine. But when I look at this team, that's like the only player I want to keep. It's a 14-team super flex and it's a 4-point per passing touchdown. Like, if you want to just that lottery ticket, right? Just a total bailout. Instead of it being a 2026 team, maybe it could be a 2025 team if Trey Lance hits. But I'm not looking to sell him. If I can get like a projected pretty decent 24 first from him, then the correct process is probably to say bye-bye and try to get just like any warm body running back or QB thrown in there. Given it's a 14-team super flex, but I'm not dying at all to trade Trey Lance in that format.
That's entirely fair. Entirely fair.
I get what you're saying too. I mean, I think there's a couple of different ways to play it, but he's the last person I'm moving on that team.
Okay, and then I'll get into mine here real quick, and then we'll finish up with Clay and some of his thoughts on the team. So when I looked at this, I had the same thought as Andrew. There's very little that you can trade for anything of value besides Trey Lance. And I wasn't sure I wanted to move Lance either, and I didn't want to just copy what Andrew did. So sure. So I tried to think outside the box a little bit. He has the 2024 first of one in a Minions, that team, who's loaded with older players. He's got Eckler, he's got Connor, Keenan, Amari, Diggs, Hopkins. So he looks like he could contend this year, but that's a roster that could kind of fall apart in 24. So I was thinking he could maybe try and trade that guy his first back, which could be later, assuming he doesn't start selling pieces off or something like that, for a 25 purse plus something, maybe a second, maybe something else. I don't know. And see if, he uses, and I was saying that the guy who he's trading it to could, even if he's not super into picks, because, he's got all these old players, you could see that as well. I can move this 24 first since I don't have any young pieces to give to maybe another team that has an older player they don't want anymore. You can see that as a move he can make where he'll get more in return than he will for even a 25 first or even a 25 first plus. So I thought it might make some sense for that guy. I thought it might make sense from our team. This team is not competing until 2025 at the earliest. So I don't mind moving a 24 first into 25. And it's very possible, like I said, the idea is that it would be a higher 25 first than it would be a 24 first, because this guy's team, unless he does a really good job over the next 2 years, it's very aging. He probably thinks he's a contender this year, but it's I would say it's iffy even there, depending on how all these guys hold up. So what do you think of that move, Clay? Just sort of moving picks around and kind of pushing it back and maybe getting a little plus on top.
Yeah, I definitely think it's creative. I guess the only problem is I don't know why that owner would be interested in doing that now. Making this first swap between 24 and 25, unless the person who would be receiving the 24 first already has something lined up. Has had conversations with other managers, and that other manager's like, yeah, but you don't have a 24 first to tack on. Unless there's like a cascade trade going on here and there's another trade lined up, there's no incentive for that person to trade 25 first for the 24.
Yeah, and like I said, that's what I was hoping.
It's
Is that maybe
it's
you could
creative
kind of
though.
sell it to
And
them that you
Andrew
can move
already
this for
said,
another piece. Yeah,
right. Andrew already said the other option. Like
Yeah.
we're not flush with tons of options here. So
Well,
no,
it's
the creativity, I like it.
It's funny you said like that was the last person you'd want to trade, and Rocky's like, "This is the only trade I could find," and I'm like, "This is the only trade I could find." Too. Like, it's the only asset of value on this roster. I'm with you. It's the last trade, and that's where we're at. You know what I mean? Like it's the last stop before we get home. I will say this to this trade. I like the creativity here too. This is one I haven't actually done before, but hearing it out, you could look at this logic and say, "Hey, I'm giving you your 24 back."
That was part of it too. That it was his own.
So it's kind of like it incentivizes or kind of insulates that manager from, if they do have a bad year, at least they've got their own 24 first back. And then kind of kicking it ahead a year, obviously you're going to have to add a piece to that, which in this kind of league with this kind of team, I want as many assets as I can. So breaking up 124 first into a 25 first and another asset, I actually don't hate it all. I think that actually makes a lot of sense.
And now that I'm sorry, I was just going to say, I was just thinking as you were talking, and Clay, what Clay said, now that I'm thinking about it, maybe you even try and do 24 first and Brandon Cooks and get to the 25 first plus spec. So he's getting a contending piece plus the 24 first. And maybe you add a little more on the 25 first side to kind of incentivize him to do it now or sooner.
And again, this was for 1 in the minions, right?
Yeah,
I recognize like names in this league too. So we got King of the North, Chief Rocca. I've been in leagues with them. These are Dynasty and Chill, Scott Connor disciples. So
sounds like it. Yep.
Yeah,
well, they have a lot of running backs rostered, which is very much a Scott Connor move. So yeah, it makes sense.
And I look at Rocca, for example. He's got Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes. Anyway, so I don't know how sharp this league is. I'm not going to like try to speak to that, but I do recognize some names in here.
I just wanted to mention, like, 1 in the minion has Troy Hairston.
I
don't even know who that is. Like, it's just
that's not a real person.
That's made up, right? Tyler Goodson. I remember that name. So like, these are running backs on that roster. So like 1 in the minion has some players that he could, in theory anyway, or he or she, whatever, they could get rid of. And I think that's the same kind of, the only thing I would add is that I would maybe, instead of a second, which may be a little much, is like do a 24 first for a 25 first and 2 players you think have upside. Like I said before, like every time I'm rebuilding, I want every possible upside pick. And as much as an actual draft pick is fun, I kind of want to see what I'm getting too. And like kind of, show me, like Deion Jackson, maybe you take, and maybe there's a chance that he gets some run and you can trade him for a second later on or something, or maybe you just ride that lightning or something. And you never know. So James Robinson is on Minions roster. Maybe you have him throw in James Robinson and see if he can be something. Because I don't know if you're going to get a second on top of like a first for a first kind of trade, but I love the logic behind it for sure. So yeah, I thought that was really creative, Rocky. Good job.
Well, thank you, Clay. I tried.
No, we saved the best for last.
Finish up the thoughts on this team here. Yeah.
So. And hopefully I'm not being an ass by like making fun of this team and like saying trash cans multiple times.
I think Jerry's okay with it.
It could be okay.
I think he realizes
it could be a lot worse. Yeah. So Shane,
pretty bright player, so he knows this is reality time.
Okay, because if Shane were on here, he'd be way worse. So
yeah. He is the worst.
This is gentle. Yeah, right. The X. So.
That's right. X.
Yeah, looking at this team, I'm just trying to get any value I can for Roshan Johnson, Kendre Miller, Rashad Bateman, Jacoby Myers, bye Marvin Mims. I just want assets here. And did you say this is a 14-team start 11?
Yes.
Yeah, give me some. What, he had 4 or 5 seconds already,
10,
right?
Yes. Just 4 first, 4 seconds. Yep.
Package a couple. I'd be okay giving up 2 for 1 if you're talking about one of them being like Jacoby Myers. Give up Jacoby Myers and Roshan Johnson for a second and a third or something like that. Or same thing with Kendre Miller. Just trade all the running backs that have any value. Bye Roshan. Who knows if McBride will end up having value at some point. Kendre Miller, freaking Dorian Thompson Robinson, go to the Deshaun Watson and try to get a 25 third, just like spam the shit out of your league. Sorry for the cursing. We didn't discuss that.
It's totally fucking fine. You're
good. I'm just spamming the living daylights out of the league, trying to get what I can. 25 second for Brandon Cooks, Jacoby Myers, 24 second, just spamming, just aggressively trying to collect assets.
Yeah, with the cursing, we've had Shane on before, so no worries.
Okay, yeah.
If you're listening to
tough.
this with your kids right now, I'm sorry, but you're not, so it's fine. I want to say this though, and I like the idea of where you're going with this too, and kind of doing the 2-for-1. I did look because I was curious too, even before you mentioned that, but he took Kendry Miller at the 112, Roshan Johnson at the 201. Again, that's not 2 picks in a row because it's a 14 teamer, but Kendry Miller at the 112, Roshan Johnson at the 201. I'd be happy to trade the two of them for a 24 first.
Oh, all day.
You're not going to get much value out of running backs on this
yes.
team. Those 2 running backs could be worth something to a contending team. Technically, yes, it is kind of like kicking what could be a late first in Kendry Miller and an early second to be a late first again next year. I just want that reroll. I'm like, you know what? This isn't going to work. The only other thing I would say to this is all 3 of these trades don't have to happen today. That's the other benefit about a rebuild. You literally have all the time in the world to wait until the assets make sense. You wait until they declare Trey Lance the starter. You might get more than that. You wait until Alvin Kamara gets suspended for 3 games or something. You know what I mean? Like, we don't know yet quite with that for Kendry Miller. You wait until Khalil Herbert gets a hamstring pull in the second game and Roshan blows up and you trade him before week 3 when you still don't know who's going to be the starter. Like, those are the kind of moments you wait for. And that's why I always say over and over again, timing is everything. And I think as long as you keep your head on a swivel and kind of make sure that you're paying attention, you can make a ton of value on this team.
Yeah.
You find it, see if there's a team in your league that has like 2 wide receiver injuries in the week. Bam, there goes Brandon Cooks. You know what I mean? Like, that's when you need to send that guy out. So I don't think you strike now. I think that, and again, he mentioned this too, like he's made some trades already. He's kind of torn this team down clearly. But I also think that he's doing the right thing of still filling the roster. I know that's something that Shane doesn't always do, which cracks me up. I know in HQ3, he has, I think our rosters are 35 plus 10 IR plus 10 taxi. And I think he had like 24 players on his roster. I'm like, that's almost half. Like, that's well done, Shane. But no, I think, again, Jerry, you're on the right track here. I think if you're going to tear it to the studs, just keep tearing, man. Like, just keep throwing everything against it.
And
I
get
think
those
you got a
top
chance,
4
but-
picks. Do everything you
Yes.
can to get the top 4 picks.
I was even thinking, like, you could, in theory, too, like, take what you think is the worst first and Roshan Johnson for what you think is the 102, 103, right? And it looks like it's a first and Roshan for a first. So the other person might be looking like, thinking they have a good chance. And like, that's free Roshan Johnson. Like,
can you guys
you're
pull
looking
that
at it
off?
now.
Can you guys pull that off this time of year? Can you guys do any moves like
Not
that?
this time of year. No, I'm saying, but that's something I would keep in the back of my
I
brain
will
in
say,
week 3. You know?
Scott has tried to do stuff like that with me before.
Who
Who
has?
has?
Scott Connor.
Oh,
For sure. Yeah.
That's
Oh,
great.
that. Yeah.
And I always decline it when Scott's trying to trade me at first.
Yeah.
You
I'm
know,
always like,
you
he's
know
onto
when you're just one of like just a number to him. He just sends out, just spams everything. It's like, who is this player? Why do you want my third? No.
Yeah.
No,
God bless him. He knows what he's doing. He's
Yes.
you know,
He knows
no
what he's
ill
doing.
talk there. It's just more of like, I'm getting
he's a
fleeced and I know
machine.
it and I'm fine with it, except like
He is a
But,
machine, no doubt.
Yep. But that'll finish up our show this week. So I want to thank Clay for coming on.
No,
And
it was
Clay,
fun, guys.
yeah, it was a great time. Love talking.
terrible
to you.
team, but fun time. Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
yeah.
And I just want to, I didn't really, I think, give you a chance to do this at the top. So I want to let you now just plug
Yes.
everything you got going on.
Yeah, you can just try find us on YouTube, Dynasty Trades in 5. You can find us on there. We are at Trades in 5 on Twitter, and then at Dynasty Trades in 5 on TikTok and Instagram. We do a ton of reels and content over there. So we do 1 to 2 short form pieces of content on TikTok and Instagram every day. And then, yes, Shane and Scott do Manic and Chill now as bringing back the old brand. They do that once
Love
a week
it.
now on our channel. Live stream every Tuesday, and I have a Thursday show now, let's call it, where it's going to be a little bit of mixed bag of stuff, and some collaborations and whatnot. But Dynasty Trades in 5 on YouTube. You can start there.
Love it. Okay, so we'll finish up with our business here. I'm at Dynasty FF Addict. Andrew's at Andrew Hall FF. Scott is at Scott_Sidlow. The pod is at Dynasty Junkies. And please make sure you're subscribing to the DAP Network at DAP Network on Twitter. We're also on YouTube. That's how you can see us when we stream live. Occasionally, Trade Addicts will go live. So just make sure you're signed up to the DAP Network. And I think, subscribe, rate, and review. We always forget to say that.
Yes.
So subscribe, rate, and review. We love seeing the reviews. We've been getting some more reviews recently. We really appreciate it. Love hearing what you think of the show. But with that, Andrew, why don't you take us out?
Oh man, thank you so much for joining us, Clay. It was a great time getting to talk with you
It's a good
and
time.
kind of
Thank you.
chat it up. I know there's a lot of fun in the NFC as a wide receiver group, so that was awesome. Shout out to everyone in the chat. We did a puff pass kick in again tonight. Obviously, friends of the show, Shane Manila. We had T Sandiford 08. We had Jason
nice,
Reel in the Dynasty Junkies League. We had Dynasty New with some hammers. I love that. I don't know if we didn't put that one up, but that one deserves it.
There we go.
That's a good call out. Tater Wolf was in the chat tonight. That was nice. Love seeing Tater in there. And again, K-Mac came in at the end. That was nice. Little Clay fire. I love that.
Mac.
So yes, love seeing you on this one, Clay. I appreciate you joining us. And for that and everyone else listening at home, Junkies out.